YouTube, how the heck you doing? This is Corey here with Watcher of Realms. We're back with another one. So this is going to be a little bit of a showcase of Yuri. This is just going over the skills, going over the awakenings, and we're going to see if she's going to be guild v guild viable or just arena viable. Where is she going to be used now that she's going to be entering the game, right? So first and foremost, we're just going to read the skill. So talent, every 5 basic attacks will trigger a chaos orb that deals 160% damage to the target and 4 surrounding enemies one time. Then will deal 50% damage 6 times to random targets in range. And it deals 20% increased damage to airborne units. So first and foremost, this seems very much kind of like boss centric, at least talent wise. Her basic attack deals 50% damage 2 times to random enemies in range, prioritizing airborne units. Whenever this is fully skilled up, it looks like it's going to be about 60% damage 2 times, so 120 in total. Kind of reminds me of Hotsit in a sense, where Hotsit's autos kind of bounce and is technically 2 hits. So that's going to be a little bit interesting. She is also Nightmare Piercer. So 2 interesting factions. She's probably going to benefit a lot from Yovar as a lord, and then Torador Rygar whenever he's released. But I'm assuming probably going to benefit a little bit more from Torador, at least with a passive like this. Getting the chance to double hits kind of disgusting. That kind of makes it about 240% damage. Kind of nice. So this is the range, a pretty standard piercer range, all things considered. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Nyx, so that'll be interesting. Very long range overall. So let's see. Needle of Torment, this is the ult. A lot of discussion about this because I think it does about 3,750% damage, fully skilled up, whenever it goes through the full ultimate duration. So it's going to be interesting to see how good this skill is, right? So this skill, it deals 5 hits, 55 whenever it's fully skilled up. It's about 75% damage per second to 1 enemies in range. When the target dies, the skill gains 5% rage, or whenever target dies during the skill, gains 5% rage and targets 1 other enemy near the fallen target. So this is kind of like a cleanup attack, and if you actually look at the description showcase here, it goes ahead, takes out a significant amount of hits, then it moves on to the next target. So it's kind of interesting. I feel like this is going to be really good whenever we start thinking about things like Immortal Codex, especially whenever we go ahead and get the duel of Conqueror and Styx. So this is going to be a little bit interesting. Go ahead and pair her with Helga, and you might even be able to go ahead and clear some of the more later stages in Styx with relative ease, especially when paired with the Yovar. And it actually might get a little bit disgusting. And then 5% rage regen off of taking out a unit. Similar to Nyx in a sense, where A5 Nyx, where whenever a unit dies, goes ahead and gives her rage. So that'll be very interesting. Very interesting. She does a lot of damage, like base stats wise. Then this could actually get a little bit insane in terms of just how much damage she can chunk out. So we just kind of have to wait and see how that kind of stacks up alongside her talent. Vixen's Charm, talent, and ultimate inflict defense reduction on targets hit for 3 seconds. Okay, so she's focusing on one particular target. Okay, so in a sense, this kind of counteracts the ult because the ult benefits from her swapping targets, right? Because it gives her rage. But if she's going to be hitting one specific target, like a boss like Guild Boss 2, Semra, or Drake's Chasm, it might be beneficial because she's going to apply that defense reduction. I'm thinking about Guild v Guild. It might be good if she's attacking. Well, it depends if she follows the Nightmare. I don't know why I keep saying Nightmare way of attacking, where they attack like one unit and it doesn't matter the amount of HP the unit has. They typically tend to hit the higher HP unit. or if she follows the piercer way, where the piercers tend to attack the lower HP unit. So we just have to see about that, because if it's the latter, right, attacking the lower HP, she's never really going to benefit from this defense reduction. So first and foremost, let's see. This is 15%, scales up to 25%. I think that might be the second highest. I think she's beat by Hotsit for 30%. But Hotsit, I think, needs like multiple units to be present. So this will be interesting. Definitely going to be used. Honestly, I could see her being the replacement for Hotsit in some ways, given the range. I could see her possibly replacing Hotsit. Also, she might be good for anti-swarm teams. Hotsit's only used as a cleanup, right? Like, you bait Hotsit ult and then you just run through. This, you won't even be able to kind of avoid, because she'll just auto proc it, right? Based off her ult, which is this range overall. Very nice range, right? This is pretty much going to take up any map whatsoever. She's just going to ult. It's actually insane. And I'm imagining whenever she's paired with the Piercer Lord, probably fills up this and this. Actually, now that I think about it, she could even be really good for Pelagios Codex and Styx Codex, because if she's gaining rage off of taking out the units, she could scale up like pretty quickly, basically get to a point where she almost has infinite ult if you go ahead and put enough damage on her. So that will be interesting to see how it works. Each time the talent, this is her passive, another one, it's Seductive Glance. Each time the talent is triggered, increases attack by, let's see, 10%, stacking up to 4 times whenever this is like fully skilled up, right? So when reaching max stacks, resets after 20 seconds. Okay. So basically she gets 40% increased damage each time the talent's triggered. I'm not gonna lie, she might actually be kind of fire. Like, she might actually do some damage. With this passive and the talent stacked together, I could see her being really strong when it comes to like boss content. Like, really strong. The only negative is she won't benefit from gaining the rage regen from her ult, but damage wise, she might actually do a lot of damage, especially if you pair her with, like, I feel like Piercers might be the best faction for her, because she gets the scaling damage. I don't know, actually. Maybe she has 2 really good factions, right? I've been saying for a while that we need a Nightmare Piercer, and we finally got one. So she might actually be strong. Song of the Exiled. This is the bond skill. So obtain Hero Kigiri, the Undying Ronin, to unlock the following bonus effect. Chaos Orbs triggered by the talent deals 100% increased damage to the main target. Okay. After dealing damage, restores 10% to 2 friendly units within 3 tiles of the Chaos Orb. This doesn't affect the hero's HP. Okay, so it doesn't affect her, so she doesn't heal herself. But whenever paired with a Nightmare unit, especially with Torador, it actually might help them, especially for Guild v Guild, because one of the main issues with Nightmare teams is if you have enough damage to just kill Torador through Carnelian or Lily, it's pretty GG. So she's going to provide possibly some additional sustain for those units, so that's kind of valuable. And even if you're not using her for Guild v Guild, just having the ability to access more heals for your units for PvE content is super, super helpful, especially considering that gives your healer like a little bit of a break so they can heal another target. So that's very valuable. That's very valuable. All right, let's see what the awakenings are. When dealing damage, this is A1. When dealing damage, there's a 10% chance of inflicting stun. That might be crazy. That might actually be insane. Because if she procs ult and she's dealing let me see, let me kind of try to guess this. She does 5 hits per second for 10 seconds. Okay. So she does about 50 hits in 10 seconds. So that means she might inflict about 5 stuns potentially during the course of her ult. And then she might still inflict stuns afterwards. She might get a little bit insane, especially with like a Torador where you get double hits. I want to see how that interaction works. If it counts as 2 separate hits, then that might get a little bit disgusting. Like this A1 might actually be like kind of broken. Attack 300, that's standard. Damage increases as the number of targets in basic attack range decreases. Damage increases ranges from 8 to 40%. Okay. So her A3 reads like she is really, really intended to be like a boss killer. Like she's really supposed to kind of nuke out bosses because basically she should always, if she's A3, she should always be a 40% damage increase because there's only one unit, like one unit. When it comes to AoE, wait, that's actually kind of disgusting because think about it for like arena, like anti-air or AoE, for example, right? You go ahead and you ult, you go ahead and take out one unit, then you scale up because there's less units in the attack range, and then you continuously like scale up and you get more rage regen from killing out the units. So this A3 is actually really strong. This A3, honestly, the more that I read this kit, if her base stats are strong enough, she might actually be broken. Like she might actually just be her. Like she might be broken. Penetration 8%, that's standard with piercers. That's a piercer passive for sure. A5 reduces AoE damage taken by 50%. This can be triggered up to 1 time every 20 seconds. This screams like this, honestly. This screams like Semra or whatever is to come with like massive AoE damage for platform units. This screams viability. That's really interesting. I wonder, 1 time every 20 seconds. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that can help. Firstly, with AoE damage reduction, I wonder if that stacks. Because then she might negate like what, 85% or something like that? Interesting. Overall, I'm not gonna lie. Especially also, one thing, right? She's paired with Artemis. So Artemis is like a pretty relevant anti-healer. So what this tells me is she's probably the featured unit on this banner. She's probably the rarer unit, the one that you probably like want more. And her kit reads it. She might actually be really strong. She might be really strong. So I feel like best thing to do is, I would say, just preemptively like go summon for her. She might actually be really strong. And if she's weak, she at least fits a very interesting niche of piercer / nightmare. And so she can at least be used worst case scenario faction trials. And worst case scenario, you might be able to use her in any upcoming content that requires kind of bursting units. And worst case scenario, even on top of that, she could be used at least for anti-air arena. So super interesting unit. Super, super interesting. Anyways, see ya.